The start of 2026 has been quite tough for me, as real life demanded a lot of my time and energy. Things only slowed down recently, and I finally found a small pocket of time to return to Identity 5. During those brief moments, I decided to read through the 2026 New Year event story, and to my surprise, it left me feeling both bittersweet and quietly comforted. Among the many memorable characters that appeared in the story, one figure stood out to me the most. Anne Lester, the toy merchant of Identity 5, feels especially lovable in this New Year event. She's portrayed as a merchant who genuinely loves children and deeply cares about their happiness. Her story in the event even concludes on a beautiful note, where the children wish for her happiness in return, and Anne chooses to travel once more, carrying joy to other children around the world. This is actually the second time I've encountered this gentle side of Anne Lester. The first was when she appeared as a memory guardian in the 1% of the Planet event. Because of these moments, I became increasingly interested in understanding her character more deeply. And today, I'd like to share what I've found with all of you. Everything discussed here will naturally reflect my own opinions, biases, and personal perspective. You're more than welcome to disagree, offer a different interpretation, or add more context of your own. And so, here is my view on why Anne Lester is such a lovable character in Identity 5. The toy merchant Anne Lester is a survivor in Identity 5, added to the game back in May 2021, which now feels like quite some time ago. According to her design notes, her appearance draws heavily from Central European culture, particularly Czech influences, which can be seen in her clothing. At the same time, she wears a traditional Austro-Hungarian hat and a pair of British shoes. This blend reflects her origins, which are described as a mix of Czech and British heritage. There is something especially interesting hidden within her design notes. Anne was originally conceived as a vendor capable of carrying multiple items, along with a glider that could serve as a form of self-protection. However, due to the time setting of the game, these items were ultimately interpreted as toys. And through this reinterpretation, the character we now know as the toy merchant was born. Technically, the toy merchant could have been given any cultural background. Yet, the developers chose Czech as Anne's origin. While I still have not found a definitive explanation, the design notes suggest that this decision was influenced by the fact that Czech is known as a major toy manufacturing country. Although this is certainly true in modern times, during the Victorian era, the role would arguably have suited countries like Germany or France more closely. Additionally, Czech was part of Austro-Hungary during that period. Even so, it seems the developers felt that Czech origins suited Anne best, and personally, I find no reason to complain about that choice. In terms of gameplay, Anne is a survivor who fulfills the role of a kiter. Her signature ability allows her to glide from high places to escape hunters, while her overall skill set focuses on evasion and providing support to her teammates. One skill in particular, Soothing Toy, quietly reveals part of her backstory. It is implied that Anne became deeply paranoid because of what she endured in her past, and that her toy box became her only source of comfort during those moments. More than that, she is also willing to share those toys with others. These details carry strong symbolic meaning within her lore, which is something that will be explored further later on. So why did the developers choose to shape her story this way? The answer, once again, can be traced back to her design notes. According to them, Anne's love for collecting props was inspired by the developers' own friends who collect toys. Their attachment to toys is often tied to personal experiences from the past, or to the way toys help them find relief from certain painful events. That sense of discomfort, the notes suggest, usually stems from unresolved experiences. With this in mind, the developers envisioned Anne Lester as someone with a tragic past, someone who seeks comfort in toys, yet still moves forward with resilience, slowly finding her true self, along with peace and happiness. These are the main points of Anne Lester's story that I found through her design notes. which can also be accessed through the Identity 5 wiki. And this naturally leads to a question: why does Anne resonate so deeply with so many players? What makes her so lovable? What is it about her story that leaves such a lasting impression? Born on November 29, Anne Lester is the daughter of Wendy Lester, a woman from a wealthy British family, and a nameless painter who is heavily implied to be of Czech origin based on Anne's biodata and her recorded place of birth in the design notes. This nameless painter loved Wendy for her ladylike demeanor, and for the way she became his muse. After their marriage, Wendy moved to Czech, where Anne was born. She looked forward to meeting and loving her child so deeply that she prepared a playroom for Anne in advance, filling it with toys. Wendy even set aside 50% of her wealth for Anne, naming her as the beneficiary in case something were to happen to her. But before any of this could truly come to pass, tragedy struck. Wendy passed away on the very day Anne was born. She never had the chance to experience the joy of watching her daughter grow. Wendy's husband, Anne's father, did not abandon his child. He raised Anne alone. Yet, what appeared to be an act of devotion was, in truth, something far more complicated. To him, Wendy had been more than a wife. She was his inspiration, his muse. And after her death, Anne was raised not simply as a daughter, but as a replacement. He expected Anne to grow into the image of her mother, to become the woman he had lost. According to Anne's deduction quests, her father was cruel toward her. He would harshly scold her whenever she failed to display the ladylike demeanor he associated with Wendy, turning Anne's childhood into a quiet, relentless nightmare. From a very young age, she was forced to endure this misery. This emotional pressure is echoed even more strongly in two separate sources: the 1% of the Planet event and Anne's design notes. In 1% of the Planet, it is implicitly stated that whenever Anne was scolded, she became anxious and uncertain. Meanwhile, her design notes describe her as being lost and confused while searching for her own identity, trapped within the expectations of others, and entangled with a version of herself that was never truly her own. Even more painfully, the notes suggest that her very birth may have been viewed as a mistake. Still, Anne continued living, day after day, as the same cycle repeated itself. Yet amid all that suffering, there was one small solace she could cling to. Each day, she was allowed access to a playroom prepared by her late mother, though only for a single hour. From her deduction quests, we learned that Anne was originally permitted to use the playroom for several hours in both the morning and evening. However, her father later crossed out that schedule, reducing her time there to just 1 hour a day. Even so, that single hour became Anne's sanctuary. It was the only time and the only place where she could exist without restraints, without expectations. The room and its toys, all prepared by her mother before her passing, came to symbolize Wendy's enduring love for her daughter. Though Wendy was no longer there, Anne could still feel her presence in that room, in the warmth, the safety, and the quiet comfort woven into every toy, as if her mother's embrace had never truly left her. Anne grew up wearing a false personality, one carefully shaped and imposed by her father. She was forced to become her mother, to live as someone who was never truly her own. This is shown very explicitly in her backstory animation, where Anne is depicted wearing a mask, strings attached to her body as if she were a puppet being controlled by someone else, all while maintaining a fixed smile. The animation also implies that she was forced to attend social gatherings, marking the beginning of the next stage of her life. As Anne grew older and continued attending these gatherings, men began to approach and seduce her. Anne viewed most of them as nothing more than womanizers, men seeking a carefree life supported by her wealth. However, one of them stood out. According to her deduction quests, this man appeared different in Anne's eyes. He seemed to accept her as she was, rather than who she was forced to be. He accepted her without conditions or expectations, at least in her eyes. And for the first time, Anne felt seen. not as her mother, not as an ideal, but as herself. And so, she fell in love with him. Unbeknownst to Anne, this man never had good intentions to begin with. He was, in fact, just another scammer, which is ironically no different from the very womanizers she had dismissed before. Worse still, he was working together with Anne's father. The man pretended to love Anne, allowing her to believe that she had finally found someone who truly understood her. Meanwhile, behind her back, he conspired with her father to take away Anne's inheritance from her mother, which is the 50% share of Wendy Lester's wealth. From this point onward, Anne's story becomes noticeably fragmented. Her backstory mentions a miscarriage, while her deduction quests never explicitly confirm that she had one. Meanwhile, information from the Chinese website states that Anne became pregnant, but the child was declared stillborn. This inconsistency has long puzzled many lore enthusiasts, and even now, fans continue to debate what truly happened. Based on the available evidence, I personally interpret that Anne did become pregnant through her fiancé, but the child was never born alive. This may have been caused by the immense stress she endured after realizing that the man she trusted most had only been after her wealth all along. That sense of betrayal, especially from someone she believed loved her for who she truly was, must have been devastating enough to affect her physically as well. And it was not only her pregnancy that suffered. Anne's mental state, already fragile due to years of mistreatment by her father, deteriorated further after this betrayal. In her first letter, it is mentioned that she ended up in the temporary ward of Holloway Nursing Home. I would suggest that this occurred after she was betrayed by both her father and her lover, and after experiencing either a miscarriage or a stillbirth. It was during this period of recovery that Anne finally came into contact with her mother's attorney. Nicholas Oz had served as Wendy Lester's attorney and remained in contact with her until her death, at which point he transferred 50% of Wendy's recorded inheritance to Anne. However, shortly after that, he lost contact with her. He attempted to find Anne at her former address, but she was no longer there. Eventually, he managed to locate her after receiving information from one of Anne's former acquaintances. This detail makes me wonder who that acquaintance might be. Perhaps her sixth letter would reveal this one person in question. Moving on, Nicholas informed Anne that aside from her mother's recorded assets, there was an additional 30% of unrecorded wealth. This included foreign assets, as well as properties managed by Wendy's colleagues and family members. According to Wendy's will, all of this unrecorded wealth was also meant to be inherited by Anne should her financial status falls under the poverty level. I can't help but wonder why Wendy structured her will this way. Did she foresee that something like this might happen to Anne? Or was it simply written as a precaution, just in case? As of now, there is no clear answer that I can find. Alongside these assets, there was also a brand new children's wooden aircraft included in the inheritance. This detail, once again, invites interpretation. Perhaps Wendy knew, or at least hoped, that Anne would one day need a symbol of freedom. The wooden aircraft could represent free will, a wish for Anne to soar into the sky, beyond the walls that had confined her for so long. This may be a stretch, but it is a thought I find meaningful nonetheless. After being betrayed by her fiancé and mistreated by her father, it is only natural that Anne would grow depressed, insecure, and deeply inferior to others. I would even suggest that she developed a sense of worthlessness after enduring all of these experiences. This interpretation is supported by her dialogue in the 2023 Valentine event, where Anne mentions that she does not feel worthy of being treated with sincerity. By this point, it is easy to say that her world had crumbled, and it would have been reasonable for her to believe that she no longer had a reason to continue living. Yet instead of giving up, Anne chose to move forward with courage. After receiving her inheritance, Anne used it wisely. She invested it in opening a toy shop, which she named Wendy's Toy Shop, named after her mother. From that moment onward, her life began to change. Through her natural talent in business, Wendy's toy shop gradually flourished and generated significant income. At this point in her life, after a nightmarish childhood and a traumatic adolescence, Anne finally felt that she was being offered a new beginning. A new path opened before her, one that, through her courage to move forward, slowly filled her life with happiness. Her final deduction quest even states that it was the first time she had the courage to leave, which I interpret as her finally leaving her past behind. One of Anne's costumes, the S-tier skin shining feathers, appears to offer subtle insight into her state of mind after being betrayed by both her father and her fiancé. The skin's description reads, "Do not be afraid or saddened by the darkness. The sacred eagle bestows honor only upon those who have the courage to reach out and grasp its light." This line suggests that Anne, after being completely devastated, chose not to surrender to despair. Instead, she continued living with courage, and she expressed that courage through the one thing she cherished most, opening her toy shop. The story of Season 16 Essence 1 reflects a similar mindset. It tells the story of a princess who is betrayed by her companion and later saved by another figure who also ends up betraying her in a different way. In the end, she realizes that to continue living, she must face whatever lies ahead with courage. This narrative closely mirrors Anne's own journey, as she too chose to move forward bravely after betrayal until she was able to find new hope. This theme is reinforced in her 10th deduction quest, which states that the hope of life always comes from hope itself. This suggests that Anne continues to live because she refuses to let go of hope, even when everything else has been taken from her. By this point, we can understand that Anne chose to live courageously until she was finally able to move beyond her past. However, there is something else I would like to share. Something I noticed through various events involving her, including the 1% of the Planet event, the Wishing Stars of 2024 event, and the recent 2026 New Year event. All of these stories, together with her backstory, animation, and biodata, point to one clear truth: Anne loves children deeply. So why does she love children so much? To explore this, we can look to the 1% of the Planet event, also known as the Autism Charity event, held in 2024, where Anne appears as a Star Guardian. In this event, Anne mentions that the most beautiful thing in the world is a child's smile.
I have always believed that the most beautiful thing in this world is the smile of a child. They are always so delighted to see me.
There is also dialogue stating that after navigating the hardships of adulthood, Anne feels ready to help any child she encounters. She expresses hope that no child will have to wait until adulthood to find what they need or to heal from what has hurt them. In other words, she does not want any child to suffer the way she once did. Having endured a painful childhood herself, Anne hopes that the suffering ends with her. She wishes that no other child will have to experience what she did. The Wishing Stars event echoes this sentiment. In that story, Anne wishes for every child to grow up in peace and happiness, and for every small toy to cradle their greatest dreams. Once again, this shows her deep love for children and her desire for them to have a childhood unlike her own. Most recently, in the 2026 New Year event, Anne is described as someone who loves children profoundly. She is portrayed as both a toy maker and a toy shop owner who is dearly loved by the children in the story. She pours her heart into making toys, and the children treasure every one she creates. When Anne prepares to leave the city, she finally realizes how deeply the children care for her. She had always cherished their childhood so dearly that she never noticed how much love they returned to her. In the end, Anne decides to travel once more, bringing happiness to children around the world. All of these stories lead to a single conclusion. Anne, having been mistreated in childhood and having endured a devastating adulthood, chose to believe that giving up was never an option. She continued living with courage, while also ensuring that no other child would suffer the same fate she once did. And that, to me, is what makes Anne Lester such a lovable, magnificent, and beautiful character. While Anne's backstory is an emotional roller coaster, the aftermath of her story feels confusing and quietly tragic in its own way. Anne eventually received a mysterious letter from the manor, one that claimed the sender possessed information about the two figures who had destroyed her life. Because of this, Anne chose to go to the manor to uncover the truth for herself. Personally, I find this development frustrating. Her story could have ended with her starting a new life, running her toy shop, and finally finding peace. So, why would she choose to return and confront both her father and her former fiancé? Would it not have been easier for her to simply let go of the past? This is the part I still struggle to understand. Perhaps Anne wanted to bring everything to an end once and for all. Perhaps she wanted to prove to them, and to herself, that she was capable of standing on her own. Or perhaps there was still lingering resentment, a wound that had never fully healed. Maybe she simply could not let go as completely as she hoped. I sincerely hope that her future letters will shed more light on her true motivations. Regardless, after receiving the letter, Anne made her way to the manor. And from that moment onward, we already know how her story ends. That is all I wish to share about Anne Lester for now. If you have additional insights or interpretations, feel free to add them. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.